In 2014, a nurse finished her night shift, got in her car, turned on the radio. Security cameras recorded her at 11:41 p.m., sitting behind the wheel looking at her phone. 10 years later, a land-clearing crew found a hospital ID badge under a collapsed cabin floor. The badge's magnetic strip was still readable and showed a last scan. Time of 11:39 p.m., but that badge was never used at the exit turnstile, and the cabin was 7 miles from the hospital, in a direction the nurse would never take on her way home. The camera caught her behind the wheel. Lauren Voss, pediatric nurse, end of a 12-hour shift, February night, cold enough to see your breath. She sat in the Civic with the door open, interior light washing over her navy scrubs, a coffee stain near the left pocket from the afternoon rush. Her thumb moved across the phone screen. The radio dial glowed orange between the seats, tuned to a station that played soft rock after midnight. She'd clocked out 2 minutes earlier. Her last text had already gone through. Home in 20, she'd told her sister Emily. The kind of message you send without thinking. Routine. Muscle memory. She set the phone in the cup holder, pulled the door shut, and the light went dark. The parking lot stretched out around her, empty except for 3 other cars near the far exit, their windshields glazed with frost. Brake lights flashed red. The engine turned over, a small cough, then steady hum. Headlights swept across the pavement, catching the mist that clung low to the asphalt like breath on glass. The car rolled forward, tires crunching over salt and gravel, past the painted lines of empty spaces, past the dumpsters near the loading dock, where the smell of hospital waste hung sharp in the cold air. She approached the exit lane. The security booth sat 30 feet ahead, a small lit square in the darkness. Inside, Michael Torres leaned back in his chair, a thermos of coffee steaming beside the radio. He'd worked the overnight shift for 6 years, knew every nurse, every doctor, every janitor who left after dark. When the Civic's headlights swept past, he lifted his hand in a small wave. Lauren didn't wave back. Maybe she didn't see him. Maybe she was already thinking about the drive home. 11 miles southeast, on Route 19, 22 minutes, if the lights were green. Her apartment waited there. 3rd floor, corner unit. A place where monitors didn't beep and no one needed anything, and she could stand in the shower until the hot water ran out. The barrier arm lifted with a mechanical groan. She turned right onto Hospital Drive. Taillights faded around the curve, swallowed by the trees that lined the road. That was the last confirmed sighting of Lauren Voss. Her sister called an hour later. No answer. Emily tried again after midnight. Still nothing. By 2 in the morning, she was standing in the hospital parking lot, breath fogging in the cold, staring at the silver Civic in spot C14, engine cold. Doors locked. Lauren's purse sat on the back seat, work bag beside it, everything exactly where it should be. Except Lauren. The keys were gone. Pine County Sheriff's Office opened a missing person case before dawn. Deputy Andrea Cole arrived, as the sky turned from black to deep blue, stars fading one by one. She walked the lot with a flashlight, the beam cutting through the dark, sweeping across asphalt still damp from the overnight mist. No skid marks. No broken glass. No blood on the pavement. Just a locked car, and a growing list of things that didn't add up. The security footage showed Lauren leaving. The exit log showed her car passing through the gate, but 3 traffic cameras between the hospital and her apartment, cameras that should have caught every vehicle on that route, recorded nothing. No silver Civic. No headlights. No Lauren. She'd driven into a 40-foot gap between cameras and vanished. Cole pulled the employee records. Lauren had worked at Pine County Regional for 3 years. Pediatric floor, night rotation. Good reviews, no complaints, no drama. The supervisor said she was reliable, always early, never left a shift unfinished. She'd broken up with someone the year before, but it had been clean. No threats, no lingering tension. Her bank account showed steady paychecks, modest spending. Her phone records were routine. calls to her sister, her mom, a few friends. The last call she'd made during her shift was to the hospital pharmacy, checking a medication dosage. Normal. Routine. Until it wasn't. Cole interviewed Lauren's coworkers over the next week. The nurses on the pediatric floor remembered her as quiet but competent. She picked up extra shifts when people called in sick. She never complained about the work. One nurse mentioned that Lauren had seemed tired that last week. But everyone was tired. It was February. Flu season. The floor was short-staffed and the shifts ran long. Her supervisor, Janet Brennan, pulled up the schedule. Lauren had worked 5 12-hour shifts in the past week, not unusual for that time of year, but it meant she'd been running on minimal sleep. Brennan remembered seeing her in the break room that final night, eating a sandwich from the vending machine, scrolling through her phone. Nothing seemed wrong. Nothing seemed different. Cole asked about the badge. The deactivated one that had somehow scanned out. Brennan pulled the access logs going back months. The old badge, the one Lauren reported missing in December, had been deactivated immediately. Standard protocol. Once a badge is reported lost or stolen, the system locks it out, no exceptions. But the log showed that badge scanning successfully on the night Lauren disappeared. Not just once. Twice. First at the staff exit turnstile. Then again 3 seconds later. Cole asked if anyone else could have used it. Brennan shook her head. Each badge is coded to a specific employee. You can't swap them. You can't override the system without admin access. And only 3 people had that access. Brennan herself, the IT director, and the hospital security chief. None of them had touched the system that night. So how did a deactivated badge scan out? No one had an answer. The parking lot footage showed something strange. Lauren pushed through the staff exit and crossed the lot toward her car just before midnight. She wore navy scrubs, white sneakers, a gray jacket with the hood pulled up against the cold. She carried nothing in her hands. No purse, no bag. Those were already in the car from that morning. But in the corner of the frame, barely visible, sat a white truck in the visitor lot. Engine running. You could see the exhaust, a thin plume rising into the mist. Cole froze the frame. The truck faced away from the camera. The angle didn't catch the license plate, only the shape, a pickup, American make. Probably a Ford. The windows were dark. You couldn't see inside. Minutes later, Lauren sat in the Civic with the door open, phone in hand. Then the door closed. Brake lights flashed. The Civic backed out and rolled toward the exit. The white truck didn't move. Not on camera. But when Cole checked the footage minutes later, the truck was gone. She ran the visitor log. No record of the truck, no gate scan, no parking ticket. It had come in through the main entrance sometime before midnight and left without triggering any system. Or it never went through the gate at all. Cole walked the perimeter. The hospital sat on 20 acres, most of it fenced. But the fence had gaps, service roads for deliveries, a maintenance gate near the loading dock, a dirt access path that led to the county road. Any of those could let a vehicle slip in unnoticed. She found tire tracks near the maintenance gate, fresh impressions in the mud, wide spacing, truck-sized. She photographed them, took measurements, sent samples to the lab. The tread pattern came back generic, a common all-season tire sold at every auto shop in the state. No help. But it confirmed someone had been there. The hospital's badge access system added another layer of confusion. Lauren's ID badge, she wore it clipped to her scrubs, had scanned out at the staff exit turnstile just before midnight. Clean scan. No errors. But the system showed 2 scans at that exact moment. 2 badges, both registered to Lauren Voss. The first was her current badge, issued in January after she'd reported the original missing. That badge had been found in her purse, still clipped to a lanyard, sitting on the back seat of the locked Civic. The second badge was the old one, reported missing in December. Deactivated, in the system. A deactivated badge shouldn't scan at all. but the log said it did. Reader, Station A3, Staff Exit, Valid Scan. Cole sent both badges to the state lab. The active badge worked perfectly. Clean magnetic strip, no damage. The deactivated badge had a scratch along the strip, deep enough to catch under a magnifier. When the techs tested it, the strip failed twice before triggering a partial read on the third attempt. Weak signal. Corrupted data. But somehow, it had scanned out the night Lauren disappeared. And 10 years later, that same badge would be found under 2 inches of dirt in an abandoned hunting cabin 7 miles west of the hospital, in a direction Lauren had no reason to go. The search started small. Hospital staff walked the grounds. Volunteers checked ditches along Route 19. Dogs traced Lauren's scent from the parking lot to the staff exit and back again, circling the Civic, then losing the trail completely. It was as if she'd simply evaporated. A week passed. Then 2. Lauren's face appeared on flyers throughout Pine County. Her sister Emily printed them herself. Hundreds of copies on bright yellow paper. Lauren's smile looked out from gas station counters, grocery store windows, the bulletin board outside the library. Tips came in. Someone thought they'd seen her at a rest stop on the interstate. Another caller reported a woman matching her description at a diner in the next county. Deputies followed every lead, drove to every location, showed the photo to clerks and waitresses and truck drivers. None of it went anywhere. Emily set up a tip line, created a Facebook page, organized search parties that combed through fields and woods around the hospital. Volunteers showed up, dozens at first, then hundreds. They walked grid patterns through frozen ground, calling Lauren's name, checking abandoned buildings, peering into drainage culverts. They found nothing. No clothing. No signs of struggle, no trace that Lauren had ever been there. By the end of February, the volunteer numbers had dropped. By early March, the searches stopped altogether. People had jobs to get back to, lives to return to. The story slipped from the front page of the local paper to page 3, then page 7, then disappeared completely. Emily kept going. She drove the route from the hospital to Lauren's apartment every day, stopped at every gas station, every convenience store, every business along the way, showed Lauren's photo to anyone who would look, asked if they'd seen her, asked if they remembered anything from that night. Most people said no. A few said maybe. One clerk at a 24-hour gas station 2 miles from the hospital thought she remembered a silver car pulling in around midnight, but she couldn't be sure. It was weeks ago. There were always cars. Cole pulled the gas station's security footage. The timestamp showed a silver Honda Civic at the pump just after midnight, but the angle was wrong. You couldn't see the license plate. You couldn't see the driver. Just the shape of the car and the glow of the overhead lights reflecting off the windshield. Cole sent the footage to a digital forensics team. They enhanced it, frame by frame, trying to pull details from the grainy image. They identified the car as a Honda Civic, model year within a narrow range, but they couldn't confirm it was Lauren's, couldn't see inside, couldn't even confirm there was anyone in the vehicle. It could have been her, or it could have been any of the thousands of silver Civics on the road that night. By March the case had cooled. No body, no evidence of foul play, no reason for Lauren to vanish. She'd simply left work one night and ceased to exist. The sheriff's office kept the file open, but active leads dried up. Deputy Cole reviewed it once a month, reading through witness statements and evidence logs, looking for the detail she'd missed, the thing that would crack it open. She didn't find it. Not for 10 years. In May 2024, a bulldozer pushed through the wall of a hunting cabin near State Route 41 7 miles west of Pine County Regional Hospital. The operator, Jim Mackey, 2 decades running heavy equipment, stopped when something caught the light among the fallen boards and dirt, plastic, rectangular, partly buried. He climbed down, brushed the soil away with his glove, and saw the hospital logo, an ID badge. Lauren Voss. Employee number 4728. Pediatric nurse. The same face from the missing person flyers that had hung in every store for months back in 2014. The same dark hair pulled back. The same slight smile. But this wasn't the badge from her purse. This was the old one. The deactivated one. The badge that shouldn't exist in any active system but had somehow scanned out the night she disappeared. Mackey called it in. Within hours, Deputy Cole, now Sergeant Cole, after a decade of service, was standing inside what was left of the cabin. The structure had been rotting for years. Roof half collapsed, walls leaning inward, floor mostly dirt and decayed wood. The place sat 30 feet off Route 41, hidden behind a line of oak trees. No power, no water, no reason for anyone to be there. The badge had been lying near the center of the main room, partially buried under leaf debris and soil. Cole bagged it. Photographed the scene. Walked the perimeter. The cabin had one room. Not much bigger than a garden shed. A rusted metal frame that might have been a cot. A folding chair with 2 legs missing. In the northwest corner, a fire pit, just a ring of stones filled with cold ash and charred wood. She sent the badge to the state lab. The magnetic strip still worked. The data matched hospital records perfectly. Lauren's employee number, hire date, department code. But soil analysis told a different story. The badge had been there for years. Clay content, iron oxide, organic material consistent with decomposed oak leaves. All of it matched the cabin site. The badge hadn't been dropped recently. It had been there a long time. Maybe the entire 10 years since Lauren vanished. Cole ordered a full excavation. Forensic teams arrived with ground-penetrating radar, sifting screens, evidence bags. They worked through the cabin methodically. Layer by layer. Cigarette butts. Rusted beer cans. A length of rope, frayed and moldy. In the fire pit they found more ash, fragments of charred wood, and something small that caught the light. A ring. Silver, tarnished black. Engraved with a delicate pattern of intertwined leaves. Emily Voss identified it over the phone. Her voice cracking. Their grandmother had given it to Lauren years earlier. Lauren wore it every day. Never took it off. Even when she scrubbed in for procedures, the ring stayed on her right hand, 4th finger. The lab ran tests. The ring had been exposed to extreme heat, hot enough to warp the metal. Hot enough to burn bone. The fire pit's ash contained trace elements of cotton fabric and synthetic material, possibly clothing. Possibly something else. The excavation team brought in specialized equipment. They used metal detectors, hoping to find more personal items. They sifted every bucket of dirt through fine mesh screens. They mapped every fragment, photographed every layer, documented every detail. 3 days into the excavation, they found a second piece of jewelry, a small stud earring, the kind with a screw back. The earring had partially melted in the fire, but the lab confirmed it was sterling silver with a cubic zirconia stone. Emily identified it immediately. Lauren had bought them herself, years ago. Simple, practical, the kind you could wear during a 12-hour shift without worrying about them catching on things. The team also found fragments of a leather belt, burned almost beyond recognition. The metal buckle had survived, though badly corroded. The leather itself had shrunk and twisted in the heat, but a section near the buckle showed part of a brand stamp. The lab photographed it under magnification, ran it through a database of manufacturers. It came back as a common department store brand, sold in dozens of states. Cole pulled Lauren's closet inventory from the original investigation. Emily had provided a detailed list of Lauren's clothing back in 2014. The list included a brown leather belt, purchased from that same department store chain. Every piece fit. Every fragment matched. The excavation expanded to the area around the cabin. Ground-penetrating radar picked up anomalies 50 yards west. Pockets of disturbed soil. Irregular shapes that didn't match natural ground compression. The team marked the spots and started digging. 3 feet down, They found a layer of ash mixed with soil. Below that, bone fragments. Small pieces, burned at high temperature. The state forensic anthropologist examined them on site, kneeling in the dirt with a brush and a magnifying lens. Human remains. Adult female. Based on size and density. They kept digging. Over 2 weeks, the team recovered more fragments. A section of femur. Part of a jaw. A single tooth. Intact. Crown still white against the burned root. In total, they found less than 15% of a skeleton. The rest had been consumed by fire or scattered by weather, animals, time. Dental records took days to process. The tooth matched Lauren's dental chart. Unique filling pattern on the lower left molar. No question. Lauren Voss had been here, in this cabin, in this fire, and someone had buried what remained. But the question that haunted Cole, the question that kept her awake at night, was how? How did Lauren get from a hospital parking lot to a cabin 7 miles west when her car had been found locked and untouched in the same spot she'd parked it that morning? Cole went back to the beginning, re-interviewed every person who'd been at the hospital that night, nurses coming off shift, doctors finishing rounds, security staff, janitors. Most of them barely remembered that night. Just another shift. Just another cold February evening. Then, she found Maria Santos. Santos had worked as a housekeeper on the overnight rotation. She'd left the hospital's employment a year after Lauren disappeared, moved to another county, got a job at a hotel. Cole drove north to meet her. Sat across from her in a small kitchen that smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Santos wrapped her hands around a mug, steam rising between her fingers. She remembered that night. She'd been taking trash out to the dumpster. She saw the nurse, Lauren, walking to her car. But there was a truck in the visitor lot. White truck, engine running. She could see the exhaust. Cole leaned forward. Santos shook her head. The windows were dark. She didn't look close. She went back inside maybe a minute later. She mentioned it to another housekeeper the next day when she heard the nurse was missing, but no one official asked her. She left the job months later. Didn't think about it again until she saw the news last year about the badge. Cole asked if Santos remembered what time she'd taken out the trash. Santos thought for a moment. Her shift started at 10 p.m. She usually did a first trash run around 11:30. Right when things got quiet. The night nurses were settled into their routines. The visitors had gone home. That's when she'd head out to the loading dock with the bags. So 11:30. Right around the time Lauren left the building. Cole asked if Santos had seen anyone else in the lot. Santos closed her eyes, trying to pull the memory back. No, just the nurse walking to her car, and the white truck sitting there with the engine on. She remembered thinking it was odd. Visitor hours ended at 9. Why would someone be sitting in the lot that late? But she'd had 3 more floors to clean that night. She'd gone back inside, finished her rounds, clocked out around 6 in the morning, went home, slept, and the next day when she came in for her shift, everyone was talking about the missing nurse. That's when Santos mentioned the truck to her coworker. The coworker said she should tell security. But Santos hesitated. She was new to the country. Her English wasn't great. She worried about getting involved, getting questioned, maybe making trouble for herself. So she stayed quiet. And the detail that might have cracked the case in the first 48 hours sat in her memory for 10 years. Cole pulled up the enhanced parking lot footage on her laptop, turned it so Santos could see. Santos studied the grainy image. The white shape in the corner, the faint exhaust plume. Could be. It was white. It was running. That's all she remembered. Cole ran the image through digital forensics. They sharpened the edges, adjusted contrast, zoomed in on details. The truck's taillight design became visible. Angular housing, distinctive lens pattern. Ford F-150. Model years within a narrow range. She ran a database search. Traffic citations issued in Pine County. February 2014. Filtered for white Ford trucks. One result stood out. Gerald Voss. White, Ford F-150. Pulled over on Route 41, near mile marker 189. Nearly the next morning, less than 3 hours after Lauren disappeared. Citation for a broken taillight. Mile marker 189 was 2 miles north of the cabin. Cole pulled Voss's background. He'd worked part-time at a hardware store in Pine County for several years. He'd rented a house not far from the hospital. No criminal record. One prior citation, a speeding ticket years earlier. He'd left Pine County in 2016, forwarding address listed as Tacoma, Washington. She ran a national search. No current driver's license. No recent tax returns. No address on file. But a private investigator, hired by Emily Voss, found him weeks later, living in a studio apartment in Tacoma, working part-time at a hardware store. Quiet, kept to himself, paid rent in cash. Local police brought him in for questioning. Cole flew out, sat across from him in an interview room that smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. Voss looked older than his photo. Gray stubble, deep lines around his eyes, hands that trembled slightly when he rested them on the table. He spoke before Cole could start the recording. He knew why she was there. He'd seen the news about the badge. He figured someone would come looking eventually. But Cole asked about that February night. Fierce looked at his hands, flexed his fingers. He knew Lauren not well. She came into the hardware store sometimes, bought things for her apartment. Light bulbs, cleaning supplies. They talked. She was nice, friendly. He thought maybe she liked him. He asked her out once. She said no, but no. He'd thought about it for weeks after that. Wondered if he'd asked wrong, if he'd picked the wrong moment. If she'd said no because she was busy, not because she wasn't interested. So when he drove past the hospital that night and saw her car in the lot, he pulled in, just to see her. Just to maybe try again. Cole turned on the recorder. She asked what happened when Lauren came out. Forrest was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was flat. Mechanical. She walked to her car. He got out of his truck. He walked over. He said hi. She recognized him. She smiled, asked how he was. They talked for maybe a minute. Then he asked her if she wanted to get coffee sometime. She said no. She said she was tired. She just wanted to go home. And something in him snapped. He didn't plan it, didn't think about it. He just reached out and grabbed her arm. She pulled away. He grabbed harder. She dropped her keys. He picked them up. She tried to get them back. He pushed her toward his truck. She fought, screamed. But the lot was empty. The loading dock was on the other side of the building. The security booth was too far away. No one heard. He got her in the truck. Drove out through the maintenance gate, the one that didn't have cameras. He knew about it because he used to make deliveries to the hospital back when he worked at the lumber yard. The gate was always unlocked, just a chain-link fence with a broken latch. He drove west on Route 41. Lauren kept trying to open the door. He had to hold her wrist with one hand while he drove with the other. She was crying, begging him to let her go, saying she wouldn't tell anyone. Just please let her go. But he couldn't. Not now. Not after what he'd done. So he kept driving. Cole kept her voice level. She asked if Lauren fought. She tried. She screamed. But it was late. The lot was empty. He got her in the truck. He drove. The cabin. He used to hunt out there years ago. He knew it was abandoned. He thought he could talk to her, make her understand. But she kept trying to get out. She was crying, saying she'd call the police. He panicked. He hit her. She fell. She didn't move. Cole asked if she was breathing. He didn't know. He couldn't tell. He dragged her inside the cabin. He found some old wood in the corner. He started a fire. He put her in it. Cole felt her stomach turn but kept her expression neutral. She asked how long he stayed. Until morning. He made sure everything burned. Then he buried what was left. He drove back to the hospital in the early hours. He parked her car in the same spot, wiped it down, locked it, took the keys with him. He threw them in a creek days later. The badge must have fallen off when he grabbed her. He found it in his truck bed the next day. He drove out to the cabin and tossed it inside. He didn't think anyone would ever find it. Her phone. He threw it out the window on the way to the cabin. Cole made notes. Let the silence stretch. She asked why he left Pine County. He couldn't stay. Every time he saw her face on a flyer, every time someone mentioned her name, he felt sick. He thought if he left, he could forget. But he couldn't. The Washington detective asked if there was anything else. Fear shook his head. Then stopped. There was one thing. When he'd gone back to the cabin to throw the badge inside, he'd seen something. A car parked on Route 41, maybe a quarter-mile south, just sitting there, on the shoulder. He'd slowed down as he passed it. Thought maybe it was a cop, but it was just a sedan. Dark color. He couldn't tell if anyone was inside. He'd driven past, tossed the badge through the cabin's broken window, drove home. Never thought about the car again. Cole asked when this was. Force couldn't remember exactly. A day or two after. Maybe 3. It was all a blur. Cole made a note, asked if he'd noticed anything else that night. Voss thought for a long moment. The broken taillight. That's why he got pulled over. He'd backed into a post at a friend's house earlier that week. Cracked the light housing. He'd meant to fix it, but never got around to it. When the trooper pulled him over, Voss had been terrified. He had Lauren's keys in his pocket. Her phone was somewhere in the woods. He'd just buried her remains and wiped down her car. But the trooper just wrote him a ticket for the taillight and let him go. Voss kept that citation in his wallet for 2 years. A reminder. Then one day he threw it away. Voss pled guilty to second-degree murder. Months later, 43 years in state prison. The sentencing hearing was brief. Emily Voss sat in the back row, hands folded in her lap, and didn't speak. She watched as Voss was led away in handcuffs, watched as the courtroom emptied, watched as the clerk turned off the lights. Outside, a reporter asked if she wanted to say anything. Emily looked at the sky, clear, cold, the kind of February afternoon her sister would have loved. She said she just wanted people to remember Lauren, not what happened to her, but who she was. She cared about people. She didn't deserve this. The reporter asked if Emily had closure now. Emily didn't answer right away. Closure felt like the wrong word. Closure suggested an ending. A door that could be shut and locked. But Lauren wasn't coming back. The apartment they'd shared was long since emptied. Lauren's nursing license had expired years ago. Her phone number had been reassigned to someone else. Emily said she had answers. That's not the same as closure. Answers just mean you know what happened. They don't make it hurt less. They don't bring anyone back. They just fill in the blank spaces with facts you wish you didn't have. The memorial service was small, held at a funeral home in Pine County on a Saturday morning. Maybe 40 people showed up. Nurses from the hospital, a few cousins, friends from high school who'd stayed in touch. Emily stood at the front and talked about her sister. How Lauren had always wanted to be a nurse, even as a kid. How she used to practice giving shots on her stuffed animals. How she'd worked double shifts to pay off her student loans. Never complained, never quit. Lauren had been 29 when she died. She'd never married, never had kids, never traveled outside the country. She'd lived a small life in a small town and poured everything she had into taking care of other people's children. And then one night, she'd crossed paths with someone who couldn't accept the word no. That's all it took. One wrong moment. One man who decided his feelings mattered more than her life. The hospital placed a memorial plaque in the staff break room on the pediatric floor. Lauren Voss, RN, devoted to care. The case officially closed weeks later. But one detail stayed with Cole. The badge scans. 2 badges registered to Lauren Voss, both scanning out that night. The active badge in her hand. The deactivated badge that shouldn't have worked. She called the hospital's IT director one last time. She asked if there was any scenario where a deactivated badge could trigger a valid scan. Not unless someone manually reactivated it in the system, he said, and there's no record of that. Could the system have glitched? Possibly. But a glitch would generate an error code. There's no error code in the log. Just 2 clean scans, seconds apart. Cole pulled the access log one more time. Stared at the entries. 2 timestamps, both valid, both impossible. She closed the file. Let it go. The case was solved. Voss had confessed. The evidence matched. Lauren's remains had been found and returned to her family. But late at night, when Cole reviewed old cases, she'd pull up that log and stare at the 2 entries, and she'd wonder what detail everyone missed. On the anniversary of Lauren's disappearance, her sister returned to the hospital. She parked in the visitor lot, walked across the asphalt to where spot C14 used to be. The lot had been repaved, the lines repainted. The spot no longer existed in any official sense. She looked up at the security camera mounted on the building. Still there, still recording. Always recording. And she thought about the 40-foot gap between cameras. The space where her sister had vanished. The moment no one saw. If the camera had caught it, the hand reaching, the door closing, the truck pulling away, would it have mattered? Would it have saved Lauren? Or would they have just watched the footage afterward and wondered why no one noticed at the time? Emily didn't stay long. She got in her car and drove east, following the route Lauren would have taken, past the hospital. Past the intersection where the cameras should have caught her, past the turnoff to the apartment she never reached. She drove until the road curved and the hospital disappeared behind the trees, and she asked herself the question. Everyone asks when someone vanishes, what if they'd looked a little harder that night? What if someone had checked the visitor lot? What if the housekeeper had mentioned the white truck right away? Would Lauren still be here? Or was it always going to end this way, with a badge in the dirt, a ring in the ash, and 10 years of silence before anyone found the truth? The road stretched ahead, empty. Quiet. Emily kept driving. Because that's what you do when there's nothing left to find. You keep moving, you keep asking, and you hope that somewhere, in the space between what you know and what you'll never understand, there's an answer that makes sense of the loss. But most of the time, there isn't. Most of the time, there's just the road, and the question that follows you home, and the memory of someone who deserved better than a February night, and a stranger's anger and a fire that burned until morning. Lauren Voss worked 12-hour shifts and always stayed late to finish her charting. She kept a photo of her niece taped to her locker. She brought coffee to the night janitors. She sang to the kids when they couldn't sleep. She turned right out of a parking lot and never came home. And the only answer anyone can give is that sometimes the world takes people for no reason at all. Sometimes there's no warning, no chance to fight back. No moment where a different choice would have changed everything. Sometimes, there's just a white truck with the engine running, and a man who couldn't accept no, and a cabin in the woods where no one thought to look. Until someone finally did.